roll call, please.
All right. Commissioner Mattson? Here. Commissioner Hughes? Commissioner Christian?
Here.
Vice Chair Artis?
Present.
And Chair McClinton Horner.
Here.
Thank you.
Is there any public comment tonight?
Is there anybody in the audience that would like to make a public comment? No, Chair. We do have one person in the Zoom audience, and looks like they would like to make a public comment.
Okay.
Hello, can you hear us?
Hi, thank you. I'm just raising my hand because the sound isn't on for Zoom participants, and I just wanted to point that out. So I haven't been able to hear anything, so I don't know what point of the meeting we're at. Thank you.
Okay, can you hear us now?
Yes, that's great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any agenda changes? No? Okay. Moving on to consent calendar. We're reviewing the meeting minutes of May 3rd, 2023 OSATS meeting. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll move to approve the minutes.
In a second?
I'll second.
I'm sorry, I totally missed it in the package. I was looking at business items. Can I have just 1 minute?
Okay.
Sorry.
All right.
Okay, I'm fine, thanks.
Second?
I'll second.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Mattson?
Yes,
Commissioner Christian?
Yes.
Vice Chair Artis?
Yes.
Chair McClinton Horner.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to our first item of business. We have the draft fiscal year 2023-2024 annual work plan for the commission. Sorry.
All right, thank you, Chair. So we are here this evening because we are continuing to plan and prepare for our joint special meeting with City Council on June 20th. And before you this evening, we have our fiscal year 23-24 draft work plan that was created on May 3rd, 2023 by this body. Our goal this evening is to review the draft work plan one last time together before we meet with council on June 20th at 7:30 p.m. As a reminder, the commission serves in an advisory capacity to city council and staff. The plan should include a list of issues and projects to be addressed by the commission and should be consistent with the council's adopted goals and priorities pertaining to open space, active transportation, and sustainability. So this evening, staff is recommending that this commission review the draft work plan for fiscal year 23-24 that was originally created by this body on May 3rd. Thank you.
Chair Mattson, Commissioner Mattson.
so the reason why I looked at the minutes really quickly is to see whether we had in the minutes that we were going to get resources and costs on some of these things. So we could look at it tonight and look at a realistic assumption of what these things might, and when we go to the council. So I wanted to find out, I didn't see anything in the packet, and I wondered if you had some information for us, specifically about some of these ones that take more time, the Newell Management Plan, the bicycle-friendly, trail accessibility. Last one was the sustainability, because I think that's pretty critical. It's going to be hard to, I'm not going to be able to be at the meeting, but it's going to be hard to defend to council that we want to do all these things if there's not the staff resources or the financial resources to hire consultants. Thank you.
Yeah, so part of the staff report included a physical impact section, and what we determined for this next year for our draft work plan for fiscal year 23-24 was approximately $30,000, and that would be in staff time and resources associated with this work plan in this body. With all the items on here pertaining to the Newell Management Plan, that would be more of staff time. We would work directly with our Napa Land Trust, and they have already provided some resources to us. And so we were foreseeing that this would be an in-house process and really to create and develop a plan that fits with the type of open space and how we would maintain that open space. The review and development strategy for completing the League of American Bicyclists bicycle-friendly community application. This is just a review and strategy brainstorming type of discussion. I did look at the application. It is 87 pages. It is very extensive. And after this would be in collaboration with our Public Works Department. And before we can really understand what type of resources and what we would need to commit to even completing that application, we need to really look at and see out of that application what we have already and mark those boxes off and then identify what needs to be done. This may be a 1-year process, this may be a 2-year process, it may be a several-year process, depending on what is still left of what we need to do as part of that application. So that item in itself is more staff time and part of this commission. And then the Sustainability and Interim Climate Action Plan. Based off of the last couple meetings that we've had, the council's direction is really to identify the different types of workshops and public engagement that this commission wants to do to engage with this community to figure out what climate action means to the City of American Canyon community, and identify 2 to 3 initiatives that are low-hanging fruit that would be easy for us to be able to accomplish. We can't identify any additional resources until we figure out what we want to do. So again, that's more staff time, that's more commission time of identifying what that plan looks like. I hope that answers your questions.
Yes, it does, but I don't see anywhere in the packet the $30,000, so I'm confused about that.
It's in the staff report.
Can you point it out to me? 'Cause
In the physical impact section? Oh, I am so sorry. It is actually in this, it is in the staff report for City Council. That's where that is. It's not included in this one. I apologize.
Okay, so you still didn't answer, I get the bicycle friendly, that's gonna take some time. It's gonna take some staff time, and I'm assuming that's over and above the $30,000, or is the $30,000 including all this? Oh, sorry, I'm gonna start over. So you've identified that the 30,000 is in the City Council staff report, not ours, so that's fine. Bicycle friendly, that's gonna take some staff time. Are you assuming you've assumed the 30,000 is whatever support for all these items to flesh out what's needed? Okay.
Yeah,
Thank
yeah.
you.
So staff are, we have dedicated staff that are assigned to each of these bodies that really serve in an advisory capacity for City Council. So my staff time, although I am an exempt employee, my time is allocated in serving this body. Same with Erica's, same with any other staff that would pertain to the Open Space, Active Transportation, and Sustainability Commission. That's already part of our staff time. And when we go to council on the 20th, in the physical impact section, there is a line item number, including your stipends and everything, so it's approximately about $30,000 to support this commission and the work that's going to be done over the next year.
Okay, so are we thinking that the Newell management plan would be done this year? Because it just says update the Newell management plan. I'm assuming that, we're going to get that done in this calendar year? Or fiscal year?
So when we build this work plan, it is a work plan that we are going to be working on for the next year. A lot of these items could be carryover items.
Okay.
We could start something and not finish it, and that's okay. Our goal is to, as this body, is to have a work plan that's been adopted by council on things that we can work on, and allocate our time to those items. And if we don't get something done, then we roll it over to the next fiscal year, or we identify what needs to be done in addition to that. I can't guarantee that we're going to get everything done on this work plan. We may not. We may not. It really just depends on, the Newell management plan. It could be simple. It can be complex. It's going to be what we make it. Part of that conversation is engaging with council and trying to determine what type of open space that's going to be. We need to have a definition of the type of open space for us to even develop a management plan. How are we going to maintain and manage that open space? We need to meet with the community, and that's going to take a couple years. Council's already identified that they don't see this being a short-term project. They see it being a more of a year to two with engaging with the community and really educating them and informing them and trying to have them understand what does sustainability mean to them and what can they do or what are they willing to do, because then it starts getting into the conversation about updating the resolution. We have that resolution that we're going to be net zero by 2030. Is that really a realistic goal? And that's going to be part of that conversation too. And I foresee that being a longer conversation than a year. So to your point, I'm not able to answer that. I'm not able to say that we're going to get all of this done in a year. Some things may roll over, and that's okay.
Oh, yeah, I guess I'd like to see that we're being realistic in terms of our expectations of ourselves and of staff. Actually, since you brought up sustainability, I was wondering, can we include planning sessions ahead of these workshops? I've spent a fair amount of time trying to understand the interim plan, the draft plan, and I realized it's a lot of really great ideas, but we don't have it in perspective to, what makes sense, what's easy for the residents to do, what's easy for the city to do. And I have a feeling there's going to be more work involved ahead of these workshops that, because if we throw out, actually, as an example, I went to, when the high school was doing its visioning, I went to the night they were talking about energy efficiency, and they were throwing out 100 different ideas to a committee. Some knew about energy efficiency, some had no clue. And I thought, how can you ask them to decide, would you rather have solar, or would you rather have this? And I think there's a fair amount of packaging that'll have to be done, and perspective like, hey, the utility companies have rebates on all these things, or there's state grants. How do we package it so that people can walk away saying, oh, I can do something, versus, So I'm wondering, can we add in planning sessions? Or are we assuming that assume that we're going to do that we're going to have this on our agenda and maybe have a subcommittee that's working with Climate Action Now and staff to kind of package stuff?
So I don't think the idea is having a subcommittee. The idea is, when we have our meetings, is to sit and talk in this forum and have it be as part of the agenda. You can have multiple items on an agenda, just like what City Council does. Like, they have their business items, and sometimes there's 4 or 5 items that they work through as a body, and that's what this body would do. So we could have multiple things, and again, to your point, maybe this is a standing item on every single agenda that we do have a planning strategy session. What are our engagement and workshops going to look like? What are we going to focus on? That's something that we can do in this forum as a body. I don't foresee a need for a subcommittee, and I would be kind of hesitant about wanting to create a subcommittee and exclude everybody as being a part of that conversation, when everybody that serves on this body is part of the sustainability conversation.
Take that off the table then. I apologize. I just, looking at the sustainability piece, I feel there's a fair amount of work that needs to be done, and I think it's more than we can accomplish in our meetings. That there may be a way to parse it in a way. So I just wanted to put that forward, and perhaps that's something we discuss as a commission and say, oh yeah, we need to do that. As a commission, we say, Barry's got to look at electric bikes, and, I don't know, each of us, and we go and come back with that information. So we're still working as a commission on it, but we're getting things further along. I just feel like the sustainability piece, there's a lot of things we don't know that the city's been doing. I was at the Climate Summit last few weeks ago and heard Felix's great presentation about, the solar and generation and microgrids. I'm like, oh, we need to know that stuff, and how do we package that all up so then we can communicate with the community as well?
Absolutely.
So that's why I was thinking planning sessions, and maybe it's just assumed, but those were the 2 things that I was concerned about. And if you've already taken into account the staff time to support planning some of these things, then I'm fine. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Yeah, thank you. When I was looking through agenda tonight, I was kind of looking at the agenda and I was trying to figure out, okay, what is it that we're going to do tonight? It's like it's like a list of things we're looking at, but they're kind of different too. So I guess I have two questions. One is what we're actually doing tonight, and unless we're just picking things and saying, yeah, we're going to work on this, but we're not going to start working on it yet. We don't have the resources. I don't have the links to go and look at these plans. I have the name here, Update Newell Management Plan, and I guess I do have a copy of that. But for instance, 5, 6, and 7 say review and comment on Echo Center use permit. So that's pretty straightforward. I look at the permit and I review it and I comment. Same with 6 and 7. But number 2 is, it just says capital improvement program. So I'm wondering if that would be kind of a review and comment. And then trail accessibility and maintenance standards. Would that be a review and comment? Or are we actually going to be developing those standards or making recommendations? Or is there a consultant and then we're going to look at their work? So I was a little confused about that. And I think you said that this is just to get it before City Council. And I'm thinking after that, then we'll be digging in, then we'll be getting the links to the plans and looking at it.
Yeah,
chewing
thank you,
on it.
Barry. So the work plan that is in front of you is something that we developed last meeting, and it's all the items that this commission potentially could be working on over the next fiscal year. Remember, we have to have a work plan that council adopts and says, yes, this is what we want this commission to focus on. And these are the items that we've identified that we would like to work on this year, or at least start, right? The bicyclist-friendly community application. We know we need to start somewhere. We don't know where we're at. We need to start somewhere. And the first thing is to review and really understand okay, this application's 87 pages. There's a lot in here. What do we have? What do we need to work on? What do we need to ask our public works director? When I went to her originally and talked about it, it's a big undertaking. And the first step is we need to figure out what we have. And we need to figure out what we don't have. And then we need to prioritize and strategize, okay, if we need to develop a new ordinance, we would have to work with the public works director for doing that, and so on and so forth. So that's more of a review and look at and try to develop a strategy plan and figure out where we're at. The fiscal year 23-24 capital improvement program, all of our projects were approved and adopted by City Council last night at a City Council meeting. Parks and Recreation has 15 projects identified within that plan. All those projects that have an opportunity for this body that pertain to open space, active transportation, and sustainability would come to this body for review and comment period. And that is where you would be included in that process. And we want to make sure that you are included in that process. So that's why that's on here. And that's going to come when those projects get adopted by council. So first they adopt the budget. Then we work out a plan, get a budget, we put everything together, we come to you and say, we want to build blah. And then we bring it to you, you review it, you provide your comments, and then we take it to council and we say, yes, we discussed it with OSATs. This is what they said, this is what we're recommending, and then that's how that process works. So that's going to be a very fluid process. It's going to be ongoing throughout the year, depending on when we're able to actually start those projects. Trail accessibility and maintenance standards. We talked about this a little bit last time. We have many different trails throughout this city, and we really have not identified how they're going to be maintained. We haven't. We have dirt trails, we have bike trails, we have walking trails, we have trails that potentially could have motorized transportation. There's a lot in there that we have heard from this community that we need to identify how we're going to maintain them and the type of trails that we're going to have and those definitions. So that is going to be a bigger conversation. And I know with some council members, they are very interested in that conversation. And so again, that's going to be a project that we potentially would like to work on for this year.
And do you see within that trail accessibility and maintenance standards also some management guidelines, yeah, something like
Sure,
that.
yeah. I mean, I think that,
we're
I think
gonna
that would be
mitigate
something
with
to consider.
E-bikes and pedestrian,
Absolutely, I think, and we would want to have that be a part of the conversation and really understand, like, on the pedestrian trails, are we going to allow motorized public transportation, right? Like, are you going to allow those e-bikes or those motorized scooters? And if we do, the bigger question is, like, who's going to patrol it, right? So, like, that's the type of conversations that I think we would really need to have as a body and really identify and have those definitions for the type of trails and the type of use that we want to have, and the maintenance standards of what that looks like. Review and comment, you've already talked about. Those are going to come to you when it's time and when it's ready. And then we already talked about sustainability. And then the last item is having a joint meeting with the Planning Commission and to discuss development standards for active transportation projects. There's a lot of projects in the city that there is some overlap between the two bodies, and having this body be a part of that conversation, I think, would be very valuable, and getting that input as well. So having the two bodies understand, like, what's planning's role, what's the Planning Commission's role, and what's OSAT's role, and how do they work together towards the common goal?
I
and
have a question
Just-
about the numbering on these. Does that have any significance of, I am concerned to see the sustainability interim action plan almost to the bottom, and I don't know if that matters. I mean, are these looked at as equal weight, or?
We tried to prioritize them based off of when we think it's going to happen, and it was really hard to look at items that we felt that were going to either take a year or go beyond a year, and that's why I tried to really prioritize it. Anytime throughout the year, we can build our agenda based off of what like when projects come up, we're going to put that on the agenda. That's going to be very fluid, but we tried to build it based off of what we thought would be a priority. But I would actually probably move it, to your point. I would probably do number 1 first, because that's been something that's been on our to-do list for quite some time. And then I would move number 4 up to number 2, because I think they kind of they kind of go together. So it makes sense to maybe put those two together.
Yeah, I agree.
And then, the fiscal year capital improvement program, that we may want to put down towards the bottom of recognizing that this is going to be kind of like a yearly ongoing conversation. It's going to come whenever it comes with the other projects. And then possibly move the review and develop strategy maybe to number 4, and then move number 9 to number 3, just so we can get in front of planning a little bit earlier, so that way we can start that partnership and that conversation a little bit earlier, and we kind of understand how each other's roles and how we work together to accomplish things.
Okay.
and I'm just confused on number 9, the meaning of development standards. Is that for development because it's with Planning Commission, or is that how we're going to develop active transfer? I'm not quite sure what it,
Go ahead.
thanks.
That'd be to do with projects like what we're talking about next on the agenda, or in the last on the agenda, which is the Watson Ranch specific plan. It's a development project that's going to have class 1 and open space instead of sustainability type of items in it. So that's the kind of thing we want to start bringing to OSATs moving forward, and that's what the joint meeting would be about.
So the development standard refers to the fact that it's a housing development or something, rather than how we develop the, okay, good. Got
Correct.
it. Thank you.
Can I just check on order? So you now have Newell and trail accessibility and maintenance standards, then you have bike friendly and planning, then sustainability, and then 3 through 7?
Let's go over it one more time, because I think I'm trying to number them right now.
Okay,
So I
go
have,
ahead.
thank you. So I have number 1 being Newell management plan. Number 2 would be trail accessibility and maintenance standards. Number 3 would be the joint meeting with planning. Number 4, I think, should be maybe the sustainability, because that is a pretty high priority for council. We can start strategizing, start getting our plan together. We're going to want to do that earlier rather than later. And then number 5 would be review and develop a strategy for the bicycle-friendly community. Number 6 would be fiscal year capital improvement program, and that's kind of, again, that's kind of going to be ongoing. And then all the other projects will just fall in after that, whenever they come.
Thanks.
Is there any public comment on this item? Public comment, sorry.
Yes, thank you. Mark Joseph, Citizen. First of all, I appreciate all the work that you're doing on this and the clarification. I would like to offer a couple of suggestions. One would be for each of the items, a thumbnail description of what all is involved, because as this discussion shows, there's a lot of nuances. And hypothetically, if I were a council person looking at this, I would say, oh, you're going to get the Newell Management Plan done this year. Cool. And then find out, well, not necessarily, we're just going to start on it. So it might help if you clarified what all you expected to accomplish over this 12-month period. The bike-friendly application might be, we're going to figure out just, we're going to wade through 87 pages of an application, and that might be all we get done in year one or something, so that there's a sense of what all we're getting for our yes to the plan. The other comment is a little on the picayunish side. I mean, you might want to segregate the projects between the ones that are going to take a lot of work that you've identified, and then a second category of review and comment, which would be, kind of when they show up, you'll review, comment, check the box, and you're done. Whereas the bike-friendly and the sustainability and the Newell Management Plan, you'll be in there for a whole bunch of sessions, I suspect. And then the only other comment is a lot of these things are all intertwined. So discussing the development standards for active transportation kind of relates to the trail standards, which kind of relate to the Newell Management Plan, and then the bike friendliness. So at some point, you might get a little bit of bang for your buck by saying, okay, if I can figure out a trail standard, that might help me out on Newell, it might help me out with the Planning Commission and so forth. So in terms of giving you a sense of hope, some of these things, as you work on them, will make it easier for the other projects, and you'll get more done, and you'll feel great about yourself, and on and on. But I think you're really moving in a good direction. Again, maybe the most important thing I would like to suggest is a little bit of a description, a little narrative to let us know what you expect to accomplish or not be able to accomplish, so that we don't fill in the blanks and say, well, I thought you were going to have everything worked out in 20 minutes, and here it is 30. All right, thank you.
Thank you, and I agree. I think that some of the items that are in the application for the bike-friendly community will satisfy some of the sustainability climate action plan items. Yeah, awesome.
Is there, one moment. Is there anybody in the Zoom audience that would like to make a public comment? Please raise your hand. Looks like that's all the public comment we have, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so just on one specific item, the League of American Bicyclists bicycle-friendly community application, I didn't know it was 87 pages, but I remember that we looked at it as on the OSAC committee previously, and we decided it was going to take so much staff time and resources that I didn't know, I thought we might have taken it off our list, but I guess it was still on our work plan. But
It went back on the list just a couple months ago.
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
And I guess the one comment on that is that we don't have sidewalks on our main street going through. And so even if we got the bicycle-friendly designation, and I don't know how hard it is or how valuable it is, but without sidewalks on our main thoroughfare in American Canyon, when we do Bike to Work Day, we get like 5 or 6 people. And it's been like that for 15 years. Up in Napa, they'll have a station and they'll get 90 people stopping on their way to bike to work. So, excuse me, but it just feels a little bit like putting lipstick on a pig. I don't know how much energy is warranted to go after that. And
Maybe you could help us get grant money that we could put sidewalks on our main drag.
Yeah, if that was a goal and we could get there, that would change my mind. I would say, yeah, that would be helpful. So it'd be good to know if that's the case.
Thank you, Barry, for your comments. And to your point, that's the whole reason why we want to review and strategize. Is this really worth the time to go out and fill out this application? Is this really something that we can accomplish? And how long is it going to take us to accomplish? And what do we need to do to accomplish that? We don't have the answers to that yet. And so it could be out on our work plan for the next several years, but we can't really determine on if it's even something that we can accomplish. And I think first and foremost, we need to look at it, see what we have, what it entails, and provide a recommendation of if we can do it or not. I think that's the reason why this body's here is in that advisory position to provide recommendations to council on what we think this is important to the community pertaining to open space, active transportation, and sustainability.
Yeah, I agree with that. That sounds like a worthy process.
Commissioner Mattson?
Yeah, actually, I wanted to talk about the bike friendly a little bit. My understanding was that by applying, through the process of applying, you're learning a lot about what you might want to do to be a higher level bike friendly, and through applying, you get feedback from them in terms of what things you could do. And I agree with Barry in terms of, yeah, I didn't look at it, but I know we looked at it as a subcommittee, which we don't have anymore. But, and came back and went, yeah, maybe we should wait a little bit on this. So I like the idea that we're looking at it again. But I do wonder if we're meeting with the Planning Commission to talk about active transportation and development standards, if even just looking at the bicycle-friendly application, if we'll learn some things that will help inform our conversation with the Planning Commission. So I'm kind of wondering whether we should have those together, and it might mean that we're looking at the application early on and then putting it aside and meeting with the Planning Commission, but just getting as much information as we can, rather than going into it blind and going, yeah, I know we want more bike paths and we want more bike parking, but we don't really know what. I was in Boise last week, and oh my gosh, what a bike-friendly, I had no clue what a bike-friendly community they were. And their streets are a lot wider than ours, so they can take advantage of, but it was really amazing to watch how many bicyclists, and we were there over the Memorial Day weekend, so of course people were off, but even on a weekday, work day, there were people biking to work, and it'd be great to see that here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that makes sense too, because, and, in the application, there are a lot of things that cross over into the planning world that have, requirements for, bike racks at businesses and things, residential communities. So some of the things would require action by the Planning Commission too.
I think the point of this meeting with the Planning Commission is to understand what the development standards are. It's not to discuss the application at this point. It's more for this body and that body to interact and understand what their role is and what planning does. And Erica can probably speak to a little bit more than I can, but it really is more informational of what planning does and how it could impact this body, and how they can work together moving forward. So I would be hesitant about doing the bike-friendly plan review first, and then going into the Planning Commission, because we haven't even had an interaction with the Planning Commission to really understand what they do and how it impacts us.
Yeah, I think just, if people read the application and just knew, before we met together that, oh yeah, these are conversations that we could have together in the future. I think that's what maybe Commissioner Mattson was saying. Do you have something else to add?
And then I guess if the intention of this item is to get to know what the Planning Commission is doing, what we're doing, then this item is not correct, because this says to discuss development standards. Mm-hmm. And so I think we're going to discuss development standards and figure out how we're going to change them. And it sounds like that's not what staff's intent is.
We're not changing the development standards right now. It's really just to understand what the Planning Commission does with the development standards. So we're not,
You mean discuss what current development standards we have
Correct.
versus just giving them to us and we can read them? I mean, isn't it just a document we can read?
Well, it's getting this body in front of the
Yeah.
planning commission and interacting in that way, because they do deal with public transportation, they do deal with active transportation, and it would impact this body. All planning and construction documents go to the planning commission. That is the body that oversees that, and most times they are dealing with pedestrian access and public transportation and active transportation, excuse me. And now we're folding in this new body that has active transportation in it. This is brand new, in addition to our planning. So we're trying to have this body understand the role of planning and how they interact. We're
Okay.
not changing standards.
I thought the purpose of it's great, it's
Yeah.
wonderful. I just thought the purpose of this was that I had heard from planning commissioners that they were concerned about the active transportation part of the standards, so I thought I think my first meeting with them to understand, but when you were saying, for them to explain what the development standards related to active transportation is, thought, why can't we just read it? And then work on our, so maybe I'm just being pedantic here, so I'll just let it go.
Okay.
But it seems like the statement to discuss development standards is not really what you want us to accomplish. You want us to accomplish understanding what our roles are in relationship to active transportation. Okay, well,
No, because this body is new. You guys haven't ever, outside of planning, when a project comes forward, it goes to planning commission, it gets reviewed by planning commission. There's already developed standards that are already established by the city as part of that project or part of any future project. And now we're incorporating OSATs as being another additional body, kind of like what we do with PCS. So when we have a project that overlaps with PCS and OSATs, it goes to both bodies. We already have that relationship. It's when we're with the planning commission, it's really to discuss the development standards of what they're looking for, like what they are already doing, what they're doing, and they're going to communicate that to you and how we interact and what are the roles in that aspect. But we're not changing the standards. We're not doing that. It's just more of what are they doing as a body, as the development standards pertaining to active transportation. And now we're folding in OSATs, which is a new commission, and how does that interact as well? What is that piece?
okay, so I would assume as we're working on active transportation, there may be a possibility in the future that OSATs might want to ask planning, and I'm not sure if planning changes the standards or the planning staff changes the standards, but that there be kind of a communication and discussion about, hey, this is great that you have this, that there's this development standard. Can we push the envelope a little bit further? Is that down the road potential there?
You know projects better than I do.
I mean, I just don't know I don't know if the development standards are state law or they're local.
It's a mix.
Yeah.
So like, as you know, we've done the local roadway safety plan this last year, complete streets assessment. And I wanted to make sure when we did, Public Works did that side, that we're incorporating that to make sure if that's not already covered in our general plan, like complete streets policies. And so usually it is staff-driven, saying, hey, there's a new standard coming down from the state or federal, or a recommendation, safety recommendation that should be implemented as a new standard for the city. Vine Trail would be a good one. Where we wanted, at one point, the Vine Trail was an 8-foot wide trail, class 1. Now we want 12-foot, right? So there's projects that have been approved in the past that have entitlement on an 8-foot trail, but now we want to update that and make sure that we're moving forward to 12-foot wide. So those are the kind of things, and it'd be good to mesh the two and understand that it is usually staff that provides a standard condition of approval of projects. But now we have this new commission, and make sure we're checking and balancing. That's again why we're having the Watson Ranch specific plan brought to you for information to share with you the changes that have already went to planning commission. In the future, we'll try to bring those before we go to planning commission, because they are authorized body to pass projects. So
Yeah, I noticed that didn't come to us, and I went, well, things are going fast and, whatever. I still think that, therefore, this item is not written the way you guys are interpreting us doing it. Because I interpret it that we're discussing what the development standards are, having a conversation about, oh, that's really cool, but, so I don't know.
Can I
I don't know how else to word, I mean, discuss
Can I
the
jump in on
different
that?
types of development centers.
We
I
are
have a thought
discussing
on what
the
you're saying.
Okay.
So, to me, I think it would be informative, even if we're just looking at what the standards are, it'd be informative in the same way that applying for the bike designation is informative on what you need to do. So I would like to know what the development standards are. I'd like to be informed on that. I also want to mention there was a webinar today put on by MTC, Metropolitan Transportation Commission, with Alta Planning, who did the feasibility study called the Greenways Study that became the template for the Vine Trail, a trail from Calistoga down to Vallejo. And one of the things that I noticed about it was the planners were talking about you need to have a conversation within your community on what you want specific trails to be, what you want those trails to do, who they're for, who you're prioritizing it for, and that one trail rarely takes care of everybody's interest, all the different people that are going to be using it. And so that speaks to me about with the planning commission, when they are planning a development, who are they planning that trail for? What do they envision that usage? And it's all changing now too, because we have a mushrooming of electric bikes now, the e-mobility, and also we're going to have a Vine Trail, which we haven't had before. And that'll get you through town, even if you're not on the city sidewalks. But these are new things, and it's changing, and the standards aren't really developed yet. They're working on what the standards are going to be. Are there going to be speed limits? Is it going to be shared? What's the trail etiquette going to be? And I thought the webinar was very informative. I learned some things, but it seems to me this is still developing, and so knowing what Planning Commission looks at for standards will be really helpful. But I think there has to be, it just makes sense to me, at some point down the road, be a discussion on, okay, are those standards appropriate for what we want to do? Do those mesh with this changing e-mobility and shared use and on all those kinds of issues? And I think that's something that we can weigh in on, and maybe Planning Commission can weigh in on as well.
Yeah, and to your point, maybe this is an item where the narrative and the description would really help in what we're doing to the public's comments and recommendations. So I think the descriptions and the narrative would really help with some of these items and really outline what we're trying to do here. So thank you. Thank you for your comments.
Okay, moving on to the next business item.
So what's the process? I mean, normally you guys as staff would write the narrative. It would come to us to review and approve, but it seems like we don't have a meeting between now and June 20th. So it sounds like the commission is it just, if, I'm not going to be there, but if a commissioner has an issue with how it's written, how do they deal with that?
Well, so right this evening, this is the time to provide your input, because the staff report is going to be drafted by city staff and submitted to council, because it's part of the agenda process, and it would not come to you first. It would go straight to,
And
yeah.
as a commissioner, I have an issue with that.
Yeah.
I find, I want to know that what we as a commission are moving forward to city council has our blessing completely. And so I'm finding this process very frustrating, because we asked for more detail last month, and it sounds like the detail was the $30,000 number. It wasn't in our agenda package. So, I looked at this today and went, wow, it's not different. This isn't helpful. And now it sounds like there's going to be some description written that we're not going to have a chance to say, oh, you missed something. Can you just change that word and it'll make a lot of sense?
Well, I don't even know if we're gonna be able to do the description. This is gonna be a conversation I'm gonna have with the city manager to see if he wants us to do that at that point, or if it's more of a conversation. And so normally what the process is, that's why we have these meetings, to have the conversation, to discuss the work plan and flesh it out before it goes to council, because that's what we're doing here. That's what we did on the 3rd. That's what we're doing this evening. We're discussing the work plan, what each item involves, regarding staff time or resources. I was able to answer your question this evening regarding the physical impact. There's no additional resources outside of what is already planned to support this commission. And that's what's going to be explained to council on the 20th, and it's in that staff report for them, because they are the ones that make the decision and approve and adopt work plans. So if we have an issue with the items that are on this work plan this evening, we really need to finalize that because we need to get the agenda through the process to get it approved to go to council on the 20th.
I get that, and I get this is the first time we are working on this together. I'm just telling you I'm having issues. And I just, for the record, am not happy on how this is being done. And, but there you have it.
We'll have a chance to comment then, right? We'll be meeting with city council, so we'll have plenty of chance to comment on what got included and what didn't, and
Yes.
we can comment at that
Mhm.
meeting, so
Yeah, you were a part of that conversation.
there'll be a remedy.
Yes.
Could I ask how you feel about this work plan?
I think it's big. I think it's ambitious, but I think it's a lot of items that I know is important to council. That I don't think we're gonna be able to accomplish all of this year. Some of these items, like I said, we do need to start somewhere. And council may look at this work plan on the 20th and say, we don't want you focusing on that. We don't want you focusing on that. We're presenting a work plan to them of what we would like to work on over the next year. And they may say, nope, we want you to do this instead. And they may reprioritize what that looks like. These are our recommendations to them of what we want to focus on as a commission. Some of these things are already going to happen, like the projects. Those are going to happen, where you're going to have an opportunity to review and comment. So those have to stay. But the other items, the sustainability, we already know that needs to be on the work plan. That's something that that council is really, they've already passed the baton. The ad hoc committee has already passed that information over to this commission, and they really want this commission to start working on that. We know that we've gotten a lot of feedback about Newell Open Space and the management plan, and that plan has not been updated since 2001. We really do need to focus on that because I feel not having a clear definition of the type of open space and the standards and the maintenance and what that looks like. We have a beautiful thing, but we really need to define how we're going to use that space, how we're going to maintain it, what type of public access are we going to allow? Is it a seasonal? Is it year-round? Being mindful of mowing and all the restrictions that we have out there. Trail standards, I think it needs to go as well. That's hand in hand. But, again, it's building a work plan of the things that we think that we would really want to work on. And we know that we've had a couple items that have been in the parking lot for some time, and we don't really know where to start, like the bicycle application. We can totally take that off. We don't have to do that this year. We can take it off if we feel that it's not even something we want to focus on. But this is the time to have that discussion.
Okay. So we've reordered some of the things kind of based on priority, and hope that when we come back with the combined meeting with council that maybe there's some more descriptions on some of these items. And you're going to have a discussion with the city manager to see if we could get some more of that writing in there, right? Okay.
Yeah, I don't foresee it being an issue or problem, but with the agenda, the staff report, how it's already written, it's very similar to last year's. We're trying to have a consistent standard, so that way it's just an automatic each year. This is the work plan, this is what we're working on, this is the physical impact, and having that fluid conversation with council and explaining to them our ideas. He may be open to the additional descriptions. I'll have that conversation with him, and he may want to have it be more fluid. But I can definitely let him know some of the feedback and the public comment that we received this evening and how helpful that we think it would be as part of that conversation. And we can definitely add everything that we discussed this evening.
Okay, thank you.
You're
and we have a comment from Commissioner Artis.
So I just wanted to follow up because last time we had talked about this as well, and I think the key is work on, not complete. And the other point is that having multiple items that are ambitious allows for pivoting when things that are out of our control or out of anybody's control allows us to be able to bump and move to something else as something is not able to be done in that year, just by default. And so I think that needs to just be reiterated, is that this is not to be complete for all of these, but is just a starting point and potentially a multi-year program.
Good point, yeah. Okay. Are we ready to move to the next item? No more comments?
Sorry.
No problem. Okay, next business item, fiscal year 2023.
I'm sorry, Chair, I don't mean to interrupt. Just before we move forward, this is the work plan that we're going to present to council on the 20th, correct? Okay, thank you very much.
Fiscal year 2023-24 capital improvement plan, review and comment on the open space, active transportation, sustainability projects in the draft fiscal year capital improvement program.
Good evening. I've already spoken a couple of times, but Public Works Director Erica Smith is here. Just here to give you a snapshot of the projects that we hope to bring back during the process. I think one of them we've already brought to you before is the new open space parking lot and trail improvements. There's 9 listed here, but I believe the 10th one is the recycled water fill station. It's not on this list, but it's on the full summary and attached in the packet. So if you'd like, I'll just run through the first 9 shown in the staff report. Newell Open Space has been a project that's been on the books since 2013. The project number is kind of aligned with the fiscal year that we started the project or design. We're hoping to wrap up design of that later this December this year, and bring that back to you as when we finalize the design, and then hopefully go out to bid in the spring. December is actually the date we think we'll have final right-of-way acquisition on that project. The Wetlands Edge Environmental Education Enhancement Project. This is the outdoor area shade structure and bathroom project at the Wetlands Edge Trailhead at the corner of Eucalyptus Drive and Wetlands Edge. We kind of parked this project for at least the last 2 years that I've been here, but I'm hoping to ramp that up because we have a deadline on the grant and we need to get that built. But we have an idea that we're bringing forward of how we can expedite that project. The big thing is to bring the utilities to the site, but we think we've surmounted, or we're going to get through that. The third one is the North Slough Restoration, Reclamation, and Recreation Access project that's also better known as the Wetland Restoration Plan. This is underway with ESA. We hired them council awarded their contract last February of 2022. We should have a draft plan later this summer. Commissioner Barry Christian is on the Technical Advisory Commission on behalf of the countywide open space district. And we'll be hopefully having a Technical Advisory Committee meeting later this summer to go over the 3 feasibility studies. It's the North Slough feasibility study, the recreation access is kayak feasibility launch. We pretty much I think we have site in mind, and the Napa River Ecology Center, and hopefully at one point some kind of phased approach to eliminating the emergency overflow ponds, the pond that's left next to the current Courtyard Center. So it's an exciting project. So exciting that the granting agency for Measure A gave us additional funding to help the Parks Foundation move forward some of their preliminary design, because they were excited about a Napa River Ecology Center being here in American Canyon, so they offered more money. You never hear that from the state, but they did.
Erica?
Yes.
I received a draft plan, an email from the planners, and I gather it wasn't released. It's not a public plan, it's a draft plan.
It's a draft.
And is that one of 2 or 3 different plans, or was that a draft plan?
That was
and they're
the
still
North.
revising it?
Was that the North Slough?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, there's a third one coming. So we had the kayak launch, and then there's
3 separate
three separate studies that will incorporate into the draft plan that will be hopefully deliverable in December. But we're gonna have a webinar later this fall. We're hoping to hit the meet in the street. We'll have a date in mind and hit the meet in the street in August to help spread the word, as well as a new sign at the Wetlands Edge Trailhead parking lot. We left that one sign up there because it's still informative for the overall plan. But
So Eric,
Thank
a
you.
quick question. So this funding is only for analysis and planning, and then we'll need to get grant money or whatever to so fix North Slough and do the kayak launching, right?
Correct.
Okay, thanks.
But they're so excited, they keep asking, when are you gonna apply? So it's on the priority project list for the Bay Area program, so that's another new item that was brought up earlier this year. Getting on the environmental agencies, regulatory agencies alert to make sure we're not going to a pitfall stage, making sure we're planning this project that's gonna be in line with the permitting process. The other great big project that's going to be ramping up this next year is the Green Island Road reconstruction widening. The open space aspect of this, or the active transportation, is the Class 1 trail that goes along with it. If you haven't been on Green Island Road recently, then I'm sorry you've missed it, but the undergrounding part is almost done as far as the city's portion of it. It's very exciting how fast they're able to get in and get out of there. They're supposed to be wrapping up in a month or two. PG&E will come in behind them. And then the city-led project, and then AT&T usually follows about 6 months behind PG&E once they're done to remove the poles. So looking to go out to bid in the spring, an award by summer for the Green Island Road reconstruction portion of the project. The annual pavement project, we're hoping to go out to bid here in 2 weeks. That's going to include bike-friendly, probably on Donaldson. That's the Cookie Hill portion. That's Donaldson from West Carolyn or Carolyn Drive to Eucalyptus, implementing probably some additional there's no striping out there now, but implementing striping and traffic calming measures. I don't believe we're wide enough to add Class 2s throughout, but we're working on that and how we can fit Class 2s on that hill.
Would this be similar to Shenandoah, Donaldson area?
Donaldson's going to be more of a heavy-duty overlay because the road is more of a collector. It is a collector, but the side roads might be a pavement treatment project. We're actually meeting with the rubberized, recycled asphalt gentleman tomorrow for the rubberized Cape Seal, which is a smoother surface than we had on microsurface on Shenandoah, but similar. But hopefully a better product at the end, smoother product at the end. So stay tuned. Either that's going to be an all overlay project up in the hill. Benton Way rehabilitation. This project was supposed to go with the annual pavement project because of the delay of the recycled pipeline expansion. We are going to postpone that project until next summer, but it is in design, and that includes ARPA funding for enhanced crosswalks on Benton Way, likely bulb outs that are recommendations from our local roadway safety plan and our complete streets assessment and the Napa Bike Coalition's Safe Routes to School walking audit that was completed this past year. It's pretty exciting because we've heard a lot about Benton Way. Council passed the traffic study speed surveys report that also recommended a reduced speed of 15 miles per hour when children are present, which is, we all know that's a very active pedestrian corridor. So that'll be exciting to have that project completed. Hopefully during when school's out, that's ideal. And the way it's being set up now, we should be able to out to bid and construction during school being out in the summer. And we'll bring these projects back when we get more plans developed on them.
Is that 15 mile when children are present? I'm very familiar with the school zones 25 mile. I have never heard of one that was 15. Is that something new or is it common?
It's if you have a finding for a further reduction with the amount of activity, an activity center, you have the aquatic center, you have Boys and Girls Club. When you have a high, heavy pedestrian bicycling corridor, you can make the case for a 15 mile per hour, and we had a design engineer recommend that. Traffic engineer recommend it, and council approval.
that'd be
We actually don't need council approval for that reduction, but they made the finding in it with speed surveys.
So it would be a local ordinance, but it would have the force of law?
State.
It's a state law. Oh,
State law.
great. Okay, thanks.
Yes. And then reinforcing 25 miles per hour in the other school zones throughout the city. But Benton Way was a special corridor with all the other activity centers.
I like to see it because I'm thinking it might be an interesting idea for on pedestrian trails to mitigate conflicts between pedestrians and bicyclists if you had that. Because I don't care if a bicyclist is speeding on a trail. I don't want the cop to jump out of the bush and write him a ticket, right? But when they're around pedestrians, to me, that's when you slow down to 5 or 8 or 10 miles an hour. And it's already being used as a state law in school zones, and now this is another example of 15. So I'm thinking down the road that might be useful for potential mitigation of conflicts between bicyclists and pedestrians. But that's another story.
Might need to be not to speak out of term, but a pedestrian advocacy like it was for bikes, similar to the 3-foot parameter. Getting around bicyclists on open roads. It might be the case for pedestrians on trails, but that would be a special petition.
And they mentioned it as part of that webinar. One of the studies they did, they kept track of who gave the pedestrians 3 feet of room when they went around them. And I guess there's some trails that do have that. So they were monitoring and collecting data on who was obeying it and not.
Okay.
Good stuff, thanks.
The next project is the Melvin Sidewalk and Storm Drainage Improvements. That's currently under design by one of our consultants. That is completing the sidewalk gap on Melvin Road between Cassier and Wilson Way, as well as 2 stop gaps on James down to Donaldson on the east side of James Road. So we have a full continuity for safe routes to school and pedestrian corridor. On Melvin, it'll actually be both sides of the street, having a full sidewalk throughout there. There's also traffic calming required of the Napa Cove Affordable Housing Project. And that is going to include 2 speed humps and a raised crosswalk table at the parking lot of the playground between Poco Way and Wilson. And the consultant informed me that most likely our consultant for the Melvin Road sidewalks recommended will probably go to a full 3-way stop at Wilson and Wilson Way and Melvin Road and James Road, because of a crosswalk needed for those on both sides of Melvin trying to cross to go down James. So I know that'll make the corner property owner happy because they've requested before, but the justification will be there with this project. Rancho Del Mar paving and utility improvements. This is a big area corridor of the original Rancho Del Mar subdivision. It'll be a full reconstruction, likely a full reconstruction of Rio Del Mar from Highway 29 to Carolyn. And then a lot of those side streets, Los Altos Place, Alta Loma, Flamingo Court, and that area. There's pictures on the website from last night's city council meeting, if you'd like to look at it, showing the vicinity map of what areas are covered on that. So we expressed with the consultant that was awarded the design contract last night that we are looking at traffic calming elements. We're looking at the sidewalk gap closures and bike lanes where appropriate on the main drag of Rio Del Mar and any other side streets that we can do. And then number 9 is the recycled water
Erica?
expansion.
What is
Sorry.
the utility improvements? Is that taking?
Water and sewer.
Oh, okay.
They've been identified since our 2016 water master plan, the sewer master plan, and we're able, council authorized in March of last year $2.5 million towards this project. And then the other one is the Knightsbridge. They authorized $4.5 million of ARPA funding. That's our one-time American Recovery Act funding during COVID. Towards capital improvements and of the heavily needed utility improvements that otherwise may not have enough funds through the ratepayers, as well as moving forward projects like the Class 2 bike lanes that were completed earlier this year in the Vintage Ranch subdivision, and then a couple of the enhanced crosswalk projects that got completed earlier this year.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And then the last 2 projects I want to say is the recycled water expansion project, bringing the sustainability of the city's water supply. This project was awarded last June. We got pipe delivered in November, December of last year. They started work. And the project got delayed in January, and we're bringing back hopefully construction later this summer on that project so it can get completed later this year.
Where's that pipeline going?
That is Benton Way, Spike Rush, Devlin Road, Tower Road, and Hess Road or Lombard. That's an optional area because the Oat Hill subdivision project or development project is supposed to install the pipe, but we had it optional in case they wanted the city to take over that project and make it happen sooner, because we were in such a severe drought last year. We didn't know when their project was going to get moved forward, so we included it. That project includes $1.5 million of county ARPA funding that the city was awarded last July. Actually, I think it was actually later. But we submitted an application in June or July of last year, and they awarded it later that fall. So it's a big help.
That would apply recycle water to like the Little League fields and the old Napa Junction School area?
Potentially. That area was approved, condition of approval of the Oat Hill project to provide the Little League fields recycled water, offset potable water demand. But it's potential to do more as there is a water line, an irrigation line from Napa Junction through the school site that may be able to activate this side, but we'll see.
So does that mean that all the residents on Benton and Spike Rush are going to be able to have recycled water in their yards?
No, the,
No.
the community parks, there's
This
there's,
is, okay, I just thought I'd ask, can be optimistic.
we're hoping one day the state recognizes we don't need to monitor every single recycled water user, but there's a certification that each person is required to have, or a multi-family unit housing, apartment housing can do it, because they can have one person appointed as the management to oversee that on a multifamily. But when it's single residential, if you can imagine all the users in the city having to sign this certification each year that you're meeting the requirements of, and you're not drinking the water, and it's maybe
Oh,
one day they'll
so-
do away with that. But
Then Watson Ranch is the big users that are getting recycled water? I thought there was recycled water going to be, no? It's gray water in Watson Ranch then,
recycled water, but for the landscape strips,
but not for, okay, I just assumed it was for the, okay, I'm good,
that's okay.
that's what it is. No.
I don't believe Lemos Point's dual plumbed. Napa Cove's gonna be dual plumbed. Home 2 Suites is gonna be dual plumbed.
With recycled water?
Yes.
Oh, but it's multifamily, okay.
Yeah,
Got it.
when it's single family, that's where it gets troubling, because you gotta monitor everybody.
That's too bad. Okay. thanks.
And then there's another project that I think is sustainability, is the recycled water fill stations, having more of those available for residents and commercial users. So with that, I'm wrapped up. I'm here to answer any questions that you have.
Is there any public comment on this item?
Rather than bug Erica afterwards, on the water refill stations, how would that work? Because I was thinking, if there's a charge, it's like for $3 you can fill up your big tank of water or something. How would that work? Once
It's like going to the gas station and putting your credit card in and taking your water by the gallon. I mean, I'm not,
Okay.
I'm very
Yeah.
summarizing it, but
Okay.
City of Napa has a similar water station.
Yeah.
And so,
But, yeah, I'm trying to visualize in my head, if a unit of potable water, it's 750 gallons for $10. So I'm thinking my 65-gallon tank is gonna cost me 7 cents or something. It just seems like a really small amount, but happy to pay. Just-
need to check in with our rate study and see how that's implemented.
Okay. Well, ideally, it would be less than potable water, otherwise we'd lose the point. But at any rate, I was just kind of curious. Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
At any rate?
Chair, we have one public comment from our Zoom audience.
Okay.
Can you please state your name for the record?
Hi, this is Carlota Sinato with the Napa County Bicycle Coalition. Thank you, Erica, for the update. It was very interesting to hear more details about these projects, and really exciting to hear all the opportunities that are coming up for improved bicycle and pedestrian facilities and traffic calming. It sounds like there's really a lot coming up, and that's just very exciting to see that going in the ground. I just wanted to ask, and this may have been a conversation at a previous meeting that I wasn't in attendance at, but at what point does this commission get to see designs? I'm particularly thinking about roadway projects and like roadway repavings. Usually, like the Napa Commission, Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Commission, sees them around 60%, so that they are developed enough to give the commission a good idea of what staff or consultants are thinking, but it's still early enough in the process that the commission can provide advice or provide input that can be implemented. It's not like too late. So I was just wondering if that kind of time point has been decided for this commission yet. Thanks.
I don't believe that is something that's been brought up before, but typically that's what you would find, would be like the Newell open space we brought to you, about 60% level plans. You're not gonna really have defined striping at anything less than 60% just quite yet. That is more when you're fine tuning what your paving project's gonna look like, and your curb ramps and your sidewalks. Then you can start looking at the striping plan, what you can do for improvements. So I would say it would probably be the same place that we would bring it in for a check-in, would be 60 to 75%. We did do a check-in on our Class 2 bike lanes last year, since the green obstruction lanes, I always get those wrong. The green stripes as you're approaching a lane was a first project in the city, and we wanted to make sure we got it right, so we checked in with NVTA, Diana, the principal planner, Diana Meehan, to get a quick check-in, because that was something we were doing really quickly with an active contractor. We did it as a change order, and we needed a quick turnaround, so that was also pre-OSATs, but we wanted a quick turnaround, and we knew that they'd have a good eye on it and helped us with the quick review on it, because we had a very short turnaround on 75% to 100% plans, and they turned out great, I believe. So again, coming to this commission, I foresee 60, 75% plans. That way we can have an iteration and go back to it if there are recommendations that are better than what's already being presented to you.
Thank you, and thank you for the public comment, too. Okay, commissioner comments. Commissioner Mattson?
I can go first. Thank you for the detail, because that's what I was looking for earlier today. Like, yeah, what do each of these projects mean to this commission? So, thanks. And I'm assuming when they're ready to come to us, they'll just come to us. So, very good. Thanks.
Maybe I'll comment on Ms. Sinato's comment. It's kind of a catch-22. If you come to us, if you're willing to come to us at 60% or lower, then we probably don't need to comment on you. The fact that you came to us and brought it to us is probably good. But I think there's been a history. I've been on the Bike Advisory Committee for MVTA, and we'd hear complaints that the bike advocates would receive this after it was pretty much a done deal. And then it's like, you comment and they go, oh, well, it's too late to change it now. So I don't know Ms. Sinato's intention on that, but I like that question. I'm glad that she brought it, and if you're coming to us with 60%, that's great, so we can actually have a chance to comment on something before it's a done deal. Mm-hmm. And no reflection on you or this, but I think it's kind of been just throughout. I've kind of heard of it a lot sitting on the NVTA's Active Transportation Advisory Committee over the years, where that can happen. And so I liked her question. Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
I do want to add, actually, all these projects, other than the last one, the water filling stations, are underway in some form, and were presented last night as the Public Works quarterly update. So if you'd like to look at the PowerPoint that was presented last night, it has everything we're currently working on in progress, but it gives some snapshots, some milestones, and timelines. That's something we could probably bring to OSATs, paring it down for just the active transportation. It just hit me with a ton of bricks just now that we could have provided that tonight, knowing now. But something that we could provide as an update, or notify you, hey, Public Works has done their quarterly update. Here's where a snapshot of where the capital projects are right now.
Do you happen to recall when the Green Island Road reconstruction widening project is supposed to be completed?
The Green Island Road, the utility portion of the project, hopefully by the end of this winter, next winter, probably by early spring. And then the road widening would actually start next summer.
And that's the part that'll have the bike lanes?
Yes.
Right, okay. Next summer?
Yes.
Okay.
But it'll start construction next summer, so it'll probably be depending on how quickly we can get in there and get out of there, end of hopefully fall, maybe early 25.
Okay, any other commissioner comments or questions? Okay.
Just one, maybe to the extent that we knew how to find these things on, I don't know if the 60% are posted, if it's on the city's website where I could go in and look at 60%, rather than take your time to come in and explain it to us. But for me, the more information I have, I think the better decision I can help make.
We're working on that. That was something as deployment of the OpenGov last year, and we haven't used that to our advantage yet as far as starting to upload plans so the public can go to the transparency portal and start clicking on 60% plans. Thank you for the reminder on that. We have, I believe, plans up there for the Green Island Road and the completed Devlin Road for the larger projects. We actually have a separate project page for those. But it is something that we can start doing in OpenGov on the specific projects in the capital improvement program.
That'd be great. And then maybe for helpful for me, it's just what the process is to go find it, you know, because I can go on there and look around. But if you can say, okay, Barry, here's where you go to check this, that would be helpful. Thanks.
Oh, it's a great idea. Thank you.
Thank you, Erica. Management and staff reports, Vine Trail and River to Ridge Trail alignment.
All right. Yep, there we go. So the last planning commission meeting, the end of May, Watson Ranch Specific Plan amendment was presented to Planning Commission. And as you can see, the current plan is on your left and the proposed plan is on your right. And we realized at the meeting that we were remiss in bringing this to OSATs for our first item, but we're bringing it to you before it's going to council on the 20th. Is it the 20th or 18th? July 18th. Well, it's going back to council in the near future for a review and approval. It's a straightened vine trail. This is something that was initiated, actually, I believe it was earlier last year, because they were building Malin Way, and it just made sense to straighten the vine trail out instead of covering it around to Newell Drive and bring it back down to go straight ahead. And as a bicyclist, I'm not an avid bicyclist, but if I was one, I would think a straight shot's a lot better than meandering around and coming back to the front again. So Vine Trail, Chuck McMinn and staff were advised of this. Math Valley Transportation Authority and the Napa Bike Coalition were I believe, shared the changes earlier last year when this was being approached. The other thing was the Marcus Road has that big curvature in it and trying to straighten that out. That's more of a road improvement other than active transportation, but you can see it there. And there wasn't a big change to Rio Del Mar. That's the River to Ridge Trail, but it does divert down to Malin Way versus Newell Drive. The off-street trail routed around Lemos Point, and then deleted on-street trail in the northeast corner of the specific plan. So I'm trying to keep all the class ones off the street and completely isolated from street traffic.
Is the red line is a class 2 or is it a class 3 or because it says on street bike lane? Does that?
Yes, it's a class 2.
That'd be a class 2. Okay, thanks.
And this is like the 30,000 foot view of just the alignment changes, and then as design is developed, bringing that back. That's not something that we've reviewed yet because we don't have the design in front of us just yet. But that is something that we will be reviewing moving forward.
Aside from the trail alignment, it looks like, is there a reduction in green space?
It's actually an increase in green space. It's better utilized green space. So in the first plan, you're going to notice that up towards the top, the green space that's that weird, odd shape, those are actually culverts. That's actually not really a usable or playable green space. The blue box that's going into that green space is where the previously proposed school was supposed to go. And so what the new plan is, they're trying to have more straight lines for housing development, and that new green box would be the actual park area for that entire development. And then in the bottom right-hand corner, you can notice that green space has increased as well. So it's just a better use of green space. It's actual usable green space for parks, and you can actually do something in it versus just having it be a culvert. So that's also a change as well.
Okay. Any commissioner or public, we don't have public comment on this, right? Is there a public comment on this?
It looks like we have one person in the Zoom audience that would like to make a public comment. Hello, can you hear us? Can you please state your name for the record?
Hi, this is Carlota Sainato with the Napa County Bicycle Coalition again. I wanted to provide a few comments. We definitely like that the Vine Trail was straightened. The straight direct path does benefit folks who will use the Vine Trail for transportation needs. that will help get more people to shift their modes of transportation. And it's something we hear about in conversations around class ones and paths, that people would like them to be straight if they're supposed to be used for transportation or if that's an option. So that's a good change we like to see. I understand this is a really, really, like Erica said, kind of zoomed out, high level look at this. So I guess I just had a couple questions about potential for these on-street bike lanes to be class 4 protected lanes. I'm particularly thinking about Newell, understanding that I think that's supposed to be expanded as sort of a bypass to Highway 29, or just, I mean, even if it's not, it's a very highly traveled road already. So I'm anticipating that the volumes and speeds will warrant more protection than class 2 bike lanes to be accessible and comfortable for all road users, especially students who may be biking to the school south of Watson Ranch. I know there's concerns about traffic volumes from so much housing going in, and I think the more that can be done to make biking accessible for all ages, all abilities, all comfort levels will help with that. And I also was curious about the crossing treatments for these class 1s. There's a few crossings like at Rio Del Mar, at both Marcus Road and Malin Way, and the River to Ridge crossing at Newell Trailhead, where these class 1s are crossing fairly probably busy roads. It looks like they're the kind of busier, maybe collector arterial roads. So we're wondering if there will be measures like beacons or high visibility crosswalks, or maybe even bulb outs if that's an option. Again, maybe too high level for those questions, but we just wanted to bring up that we've seen in Napa that crossings on busy streets without measures like this, such as California Boulevard and Main Street for the Vine Trail, it's made it very hard to cross, and it's made it very uncomfortable to cross, and they kind of now need to look back on these intersections in retrospect. And then lastly, I was recently over at American Canyon High School talking to some of the AP Environmental students, and they were talking about, infrastructure being a very big barrier to biking to school and students' ability to bike to school. And so I just wanted to reiterate how important it is that these things can be implemented from the get-go so that students really feel like they can get to school and all other folks feel like they can bike as a form of transportation. So thank you. Those are my comments.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think it looks a lot easier to bike with the straight lines. Was the elevation changes taken into consideration when lines are drawn too?
We aren't sure about that. Again, this is just a very high level of the change of the use of the land and how we felt that the trails could be better utilized for pedestrian access as well as development. So again, we don't have those details. It's just more of you guys were OSAC was a part of this process when it first started, and a part of the discussion of the original plan, and this is kind of how it's evolved as we move forward with this project, and the better use of the land for both the developer and for the city. So that's where we're at. So unfortunately, we don't have those fine-tooth details. We're hoping that as this project continues, that you will continue to be a part of this conversation, and we'll be able to bring those details to you at that time.
Do you know if this is going to follow the gas pipeline, that they were going to build the trail on top of the gas pipeline?
I believe that was part of the oh my gosh, excuse me. I hate to get this wrong, but I believe part of the Malin Way, putting the I don't want to speak out of turn, so I need to look back on that and get back to you.
I remember in the past we were talking about, because you couldn't build anything on it anyway, so it made sense maybe to make it a bike path because it's out in the open.
And I think so, but I don't want to get that one wrong.
Yeah.
So I think that was part of a discussion 2 years ago, and it's just amazing how fast the time's flown. And if you've seen out there, that's all we had was a visual like this 2 years ago, and now there's homes being occupied.
So what I notice is on the current plan, just down below where it says current plan, the Vine Trail runs through a green space, and this might be what you were talking about with the culverts earlier. I don't know, but, and on the new one, it's just showing going through. But I'm wondering, is that going to be like a little narrow corridor between a bunch of houses, like up on the cross-city bike trail up in Napa? It follows the railroad, and at times it goes through these really narrow corridors, and sometimes that can be uncomfortable to ride on because you can't get off the trail. You see someone coming at you, but you're limited to that little, and it feels unsafe. So the more space you can have around it, you get the feeling, well, I can turn around and go the other way, or I can get off the trail and let them pass and then go. But when it's, you can't tell from this plan what that's going to be like on either side of it. But I hope it would have plenty of room and be spacious, but I can't tell from this.
Well, there is the next phase of subdivision map housing has come in for the east side of that Vine Trail alignment. So I believe that is already on the city website under the community development for upcoming project, the Promontory subdivision. So if you want to look that up.
So I might be able to see where they're building, if they're building right up to it, and it's
yes, if the plans are online, yes.
Okay.
Well, Erica, if it says on-street bike lane for the red, it's going to be on a street.
But the blue line, he's talking about the
Okay,
backup.
the
If
blue
there's
line.
like
Okay, I'm
all
sorry.
homes up
Thank you.
against it,
Got
know,
it.
I
Thank
get
you.
what he's saying, the narrow
Yes,
corridor.
yes.
I also want to share the other things that aren't out there yet, because we didn't want to put them in yet until they were done with the major construction, and it's raised speed tables on Rolling Hills Drive and on Marcus. So there might be a continuance of that further up if there's a big gap in between a roundabout or a stop control intersection. But putting crosswalk speed tables, which is the raised crosswalks in, our fire chief authorized that 2 years ago, and they're not in yet because we didn't want them to get chipped and marked up before homeowners moved in, because there's still a lot of big equipment going out there on site. So those will be coming in the near future. If you don't see them today, they will be there soon.
Are they like
So-
speed bumps? They slow people down a little bit?
They're like a giant speed table, so it's like a giant speed hump
Yeah.
with a crosswalk in the middle of it.
Huh.
That's also proposed on Melvin Way.
Commissioner
Melvin
Mattson?
This is great, thanks. So are there a lot of street crossings across the Vine Trail for the long section? Or do we know yet?
Right now, the only street crossing shown here is the Rio Del Mar and the
Marcus?
Marcus Road at the top, the north.
So we think that the way the developments are to go, it's like there'll be access from the neighborhoods onto the Vine Trail by bike, but not necessarily by car.
Correct.
Okay.
They have alleys and open space. If you've been on Marcus already and seen the homes, there's like nice wide alleys between homes for pedestrian and bicycle access.
Okay, I need to go wandering
You
on my
do.
bike.
And go check out the model homes.
Are we allowed to?
Yes, it's open. The road is not accepted by the city yet, but it's open to the public because they are selling and showing homes.
Oh, okay. I've seen the signs down by the Newell parking space, and it says you have to go in and check in if you come in through that way, and otherwise you can't. Cool.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, any other comments? Okay. Moving on to Commissioner.
Oh, Chair, I just have one more update. Sorry. This doesn't particularly pertain to this body, but I do want to let you know that the playground replacement project for Northampton Park is expected to start on June 26th with an estimated completion date of August 4th, and then we'll go to the rest of the playgrounds after that. But we are anticipating on having a ribbon cutting ceremony at the Meet Me in the Streets on the August 9th date. It will be shut down for the second Meet Me in the Streets event. We already told Valerie, she's well aware, but we just wanted you to know what's going on because it's a pretty big deal for the city. It's going to be our first all-inclusive universal access playground here in American Canyon. So groundbreaking is expected to take place on June 26th at Northampton Park.
Exciting. Nice.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, Commissioner comments, just in general?
I went to the Climate Action Now presentation at Napa Valley Junior College recently, and I thought it was great. Our city manager, Jason Hawley, spoke, he moderated a panel, and Felix spoke about the city's efforts. So it was a good thing, good show.
I also went to the same meeting, and today I wrote up my handwritten notes and went, okay, now I remember some questions I have for city staff at some other time. It was very helpful. Thanks.
Do you have anything? Okay. My comment is, recently I went to an event at Newell Open Space, and I was sad to see the shape the trail's in. It's pretty rough out there. It looks like maybe there's been a lot of vehicle traffic when the road of the trail was wet, and it's really dug in. Also, the grass is pretty tall, and which gives way to ticks.
We just recently mowed, so
Good,
that,
okay.
yeah, so we just recently mowed within the last week.
Oh,
So,
great,
yeah.
okay. I think this was about 2 weeks ago,
Yeah.
so, yeah. So, yeah, I'm really excited to get on those trail maintenance standards, and I think we have some catch-up work to do. I think that this is, the condition of the trail right now is probably the worst I've seen. It was sad, so I'm excited to get up there and see the job after it's been mowed, and hopefully not come home with ticks. Okay, and Artis, did you have any? I didn't want to leave you behind because we're about to adjourn the meeting. Okay, okay. Meeting adjourned at 8:02.
Yeah, you gotta like that, huh?